Hey, this is Rachel Friedman, and you are listening to The Wellness Boss. To really compete in the wellness industry, you have to have a fully integrated business. That's why each week I will be answering your questions, sharing my stories, giving you tips and advice on how to create a business you love and that makes money. Let's get started. Hey, this is Rachel Friedman, and you are listening to The Wellness Boss, episode number 32, Being Resilient. I am so excited to have with me here today, Christinna. Christinna is an incredible person. She is a coach for those getting started in their business and wanting to utilize the platform Instagram. She teaches all things Instagram, makes it simple and user-friendly for you. And I'm so excited for you all to listen in on our conversation today. We talk about being resilient and how this is so important in order to have a thriving wellness business. Here you go. Hello, everyone. I am so excited for today's episode. Today's episode is a conversation with me and one of my amazing clients, Christinna. Christinna and I have worked together for several months now, and she is such an amazing human, an example of really what's possible. And I'm so excited for you all to be able to just listen in on our conversation. So, Christinna, tell them a little bit first about yourself, who you help, and how you stumbled into the coaching world.
Okay, so my name is Christinna Kitchaiya. I am a military brat veteran and former spouse of 19 years. And I say former because I'm now divorced. I'm a mother of two. And so we just made that journey this year of, moving to a new place, starting over, that single mom vibe, which I kind of did already in the service as a spouse, but this is like for real. And right.
For real.
Right. And well, I mean, because without, now I'm responsible fully for my own financial situation. So it's a little bit extra stressful.
Yeah, I get it. Did it too.
Yeah. So I have been living overseas for the past 10 years off and on. We were in Japan for 9 years altogether, Indonesia for a few months, and then just traveling the world as we did that. So I started off as a social media manager, a business I created on my own as a way to feel accomplished, to have something of my own, and also to try to build a financial base. And I chose social media management because it was something I could Google and learn on my own and not have to spend money going back to school for. I didn't have the funds. I didn't have the time. And so I kind of picked that. And, the first 2 years of business were great. It really worked out well. I feel like I did my job well. I had great clients. I was very successful. Come along, COVID hits.
Everyone, right?
Right. And then divorce hits. And then moving again hits. And then, all of these shifts. And as my clients had to shift their businesses, one of the things that obviously it's going to go things like your VAs, your social media managers, things you technically can do by yourself. But maybe that's a space in your right. Well, maybe that's a space in your business where you could probably save a little money right now. So I did lose all of my clients at the top of 2021. My divorce went through that same month, lost insurance that same month, had back surgery that same month. So I was feeling a little bit defeated, to say the least. And I just had already been surrounded with people like you, Rachel, and Sarah, and Jenna, and business coaches and people for the last couple of years as I started my business, that I kind of already had it in my mind that, okay, this is a pivot. This is not something where I just get to quit. Mm-hmm. And besides, finding a 9 to 5 was not going to happen. I have been applying for everything for the past almost 2 years now. And it's still kind of like the universe saying, nope, you're going to do this entrepreneurial stuff and that's all you get.
So it's like the universe slapping you in the face. Nope, sorry, not for you, sweetie.
Yep. Stop trying to fall back on all of this old mindset. You are now over here.
Hold on a second, Christina. That is like priceless. Stop trying to fall back into safety, right?
Right.
Stop playing it small because you're just made for this bigger thing.
Right. Right. And to fully embrace that, it has been, I think, necessary for me to have huge challenges and shifts, because I was in a comfort zone of, having the military behind me. I was in a comfort zone of, you're handed everything, to be honest. So it was kind of super cushy. I mean, I lived in Tokyo and went to brunch every day. I mean, parties all the time. There was a few forces that, gradually got me to move forward, but really I could have sat in that.
Mm-hmm.
I could have stayed there, but that's not how you grow. And I instinctively knew that it was not going to be good forever. Right. So I've always kind of sought out an entrepreneurial side of things. I sat back and watched while in Tokyo. They had very successful women, foreign women who were living in Japan, who were building businesses, and they had a networking group that they had. And I would go and sit in those meetings and discover that these women, despite all of the challenges, all of the toxic masculinity, all of the misogyny they were dealing with, they were building businesses in a foreign country that did not respect women as leaders. And they were still thriving. They were becoming successful. They were changing the game, literally. And as I sat back and watched these women, I more and more wanted to be a part of that group, right? I really was like, oh, like, I don't have to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. Like, not that I thought that before. Wait, I can do more? This is cool. And these were women who had moved away from their home lives on their own. They had children, they were moms, they were, they did all the things. They did everything. Right. And I know my military spouses, we do that as well. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of entrepreneurial military spouses that do that as well. So I was surrounded by women who were doing all these amazing things, expat women, military spouses. And I felt almost even more and more inside my bubble, because I was like, there's no way I can be like them, kind of a thing. So I almost retreated first before I came out of the shell. I did retreat a little bit.
Normal.
But, yeah.
Human.
It was just the beginning, though, of viewing what life could be in a different way. Mm-hmm. I think for me. And so, over several years, I kind of worked up the courage to say, you know what, I'm going to start speaking at that networking event. I'm going to start opening up more. So when we moved from Japan to Monterey, that I had 1 year in Monterey to make an impact on the community, in my own life. So I got out there and I became an event planner. I did networking groups. I started connecting wineries with restaurants, and all just this networking constantly and connecting people, and had a blast. And I met a whole bunch of amazing people. And that's really, that word of mouth was how my social media management business thrived. And so I learned a lot of great lessons doing all of that, kind of what not to do, what I wanted to do. And then when all of my clients basically were like, we can't pay you anymore, but we were so glad that you taught us how to, what content to create, and these different ideas on how to market ourselves, and these different ideas on how to use social media for what we were trying to put out. And then I realized, well, the value that I gave you was teaching you the systems and the tools and the things that you needed so that you could move on without me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I realized I was using so much energy with having 3, 4, 5 clients and having to constantly do social media management on the pages. And I was like, I'm drained as well. Like, I'm exhausted too. Like, this is like, I don't think I could keep up this pace month after month after month after month, take on any more clients to move forward. There was no way I was moving forward in my business at that point. So it was just a realization that what it was that I was actually doing the whole time. And I was coaching them how to put themselves out there on social that best benefited their business. And whether they took the advice or not, it didn't really matter, right? It was me trying to let them know, hey, this is one way you can do this. This is one way you can connect with people. This is another way. And it had been what I had been watching all that time in Tokyo. And it had been what I had been learning as I traveled the world and I connected with the many people, the dignitaries, going to the military parties and having to play that role of, I don't even know what it's called. It's like a hostess in a way.
Yeah, I was going to say it's almost like a hostess.
I mean, because I was a guest, but I was a hostess for my family almost. So I would go with my ex-husband and I would be kind of the showpiece. I sounds bad, but that's what it was.
It's hilarious.
I actually got called an escort because there was no way that I was his wife.
Oh my God. Well, you are beautiful. I mean,
I was like, thanks. I think
Christinna, she's also a model. So you guys can't see her right now and she's looking adorable in her little Christmas sweater, but she is beautiful. So yeah.
Thanks.
That is hilarious though. And awesome.
Funny.
And awesome, Christinna.
So funny. And I was like, I think I should be offended, but I'm kind of not.
No, it's such a compliment. I love it.
And they just literally thought he was lying the whole time. They thought he was lying. So I was like, okay.
That's hilarious.
So that's because things work differently in different countries. And so you never know what's going to happen. But all of that experience, though, wrapped up into a lot of things. But trying to put that on like a resume for a 9-to-5, like those are not skills that people get. And then you have to almost dumb them down to fit into like that regular world. And it doesn't really translate a lot. So I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to create an environment where I get to use my skills or the skills that I like, the skills that I find important. And then hopefully I can build something from the things that I know how to do, the weird stuff that I've experienced and the fun things that have happened. Right. So that's where the idea of being a teacher or a coach came from. And then now it's about marketing myself, I think, and owning the knowledge that I have that I know I can help other people with, and then being confident in that, but also, kind of distinguishing between when I'm teaching and when I'm coaching.
Yes. Oh my God. I think so.
2 different things.
It is 2 different things. And I think a lot of coaches, and especially when people kind of transition into this container, and especially if you come from that more of a teaching background, which I think it's kind of common, right? Like I came from as a yoga teaching background. I meet a lot of people that come from that world, or just like even school teacher, right? Like just different forms of teaching. And then it's like, there is a difference between teaching and coaching. Now, I 100% believe in a coaching relationship, there is room for both. And sometimes we need both, right? Like we might be teaching a strategy, but then when we're coaching, it's a different energy, right? We're holding space in a different way. We're not necessarily telling them what to do, but we're helping them navigate what's going to be their best way.
Exactly. Yeah. And so my goal or the way that I teach things or coach things is not to tell you what you should do, or this is the best way or the only way. That kind of a vibe you're not going to get from me. It's going to be, what is it that you want? And then what are your goals? And then this is my suggestion basically to help you reach it based on my knowledge. And that's To me, that's giving the other person the responsibility of taking the action, right? I know 100% that it is difficult to take action when you're overwhelmed, when you just need things now, when you just are like, why isn't this working for me? The process has been, for myself, to go from doing other people's social media to learning how to do my own and market my own and to show up in my own space so that I can help others. That journey has taken a long time, and I think I will continue to learn and grow in that space. But if I had never taken that first action by saying, I choose and I absolutely am making the decision to fix this or to change this within myself, like this would never have happened. I never would have gotten as far as I have. And I'd love to share all of the things that are happening just in the past week, but that's a lot. So we're not, there's a lot.
But I love it though. It's so like what you just said though. It's like so many times I think people, all of us, like we want things like so quick. And when they don't happen quickly, we start to go to that place if it's not working. And as soon as we go there, that's how we actually sabotage like the ability for it to work. And then we get caught up in that loophole, right? And it's like, that's why like the power of a coach, right? Like helps you remind you, right? Like get you back grounded, get your feet back on this earth and be like, hey, come on. Like, like sometimes a little bit of tough love, but it's like, okay, yeah, maybe it's not working, but how is it also working? Right? Like, what are we not looking at? What are we not letting ourselves see? Because our brains only let us see what we choose to see. But yeah, I mean, I think you are been like such an example of like really putting in the work from day one, even when you were like, I'm in a shitty ass mood today. It's like, okay, great. Be in that shitty ass mood, but okay, show up. Right. And you always do. And you always show up and you're always like, all right, let's go for it. Let's get into it. Let's hack through it. And it's just, I don't know, it's just so inspiring. And it's so incredible to watch you go from really following what you want to do versus like, well, what should I do this? Or should I really stay on path of like what I know I is capable? Right. And that to me is like, okay, that's successful because it's so much easier to just give up or to just go back and do the easy thing.
Yes. And I think one of the things that I've had to kind of accept about myself or really believe about myself, because I think that that's always been kind of hard for me, is that looking at certain traits or certain skills that I have and looking at that and saying, you have this, that's there. So one of the things that I am kind of more aware of now and very accepting of is that I am resilient. And in that word means so, it has so much implications behind it. Like there's more behind it besides the definition of the word. When you're dealing with a kind of a military background, there's a lot that goes with that word. And it's part of it is, I mean, it could be the same in other spaces, I'm sure, but for a military environment, it means you're on autopilot a lot of the time, and you don't realize that you are literally automatically doing all of these skills to make things work. And you're constantly shifting between, well, that didn't work or get me results fast enough, I have to do this. But it's almost subconscious. Like it's not something that I've studied or learned or I have a process for. It just happens. And so when now it's time for me to write the process of anything, I'm like, I don't know what that means, because I'm just going to do what I got to do. And it may be a roundabout crazy way, like, but identifying that the reason I'm so resilient is because of the things that I've had to go through and the way I was trained by the service as a kid, as a veteran, and then also as a spouse. There's certain things that we have to do. There's certain things, emotions that you have to shift. There's mental things you have to block. Like there's all kinds of fun things that happen to get where you need to be or get through what you need to get through or whatever it is. So doing anything as far as like being a single mom, going through a divorce, moving and to a town I don't know anything about or I don't know anybody in, um, going out networking with random people and not being a people person necessarily. I'm an introvert
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, and I don't necessarily seek others on purpose, without a purpose, I should say.
Sure.
So I'm not just like, oh my gosh, people. I don't. Usually that's a cue for me not to go over there.
Oh, I love you, Christina.
It's true. So, but when I have to make those shifts, it's just automatic, and I didn't realize that being an entrepreneur and having that to me was going to be easier than the life I had. Right? That's what I thought. It
Yeah.
ended up being very similar to the life I had
Mhm.
in a lot of ways. So I was like, oh, I already have kind of like these skills and this background to deal with this, but I had to translate
All of that.
all of that and realize that's what was happening, right?
I love that. And I think you just nailed something like really to be an entrepreneur, to be your own boss, to be a CEO, you do have to be resilient. You really do. You have to be resilient, you have to be resourceful, right? You have to be kind of willing to think outside the box, right? You have to be willing to fuck up. Pardon my French if there's any kids listening, fail, mess up, and get your big girl pants on or big boy pants on and get back up and do it again. And guess what? You're going to keep doing it because that's honestly, that's how we become successful. And it's like I see people stop themselves from what's possible all the time because they haven't developed that resiliency yet. And anyone can develop it, right? Like
Oh,
if you don't have it already, like don't think, oh, I'm not a resilient person or I don't like to do that. But it's like a muscle. Like it's just like, it's almost like a callus. You build it up, right? And it's just with doing it. It's the only way.
exactly. And a good example of, just having that resilience to keep going, there's going to be these breakdowns where you just have this emotional breakdown, and you just can't do anything. But even through feeling like garbage or knowing that you're in the middle of a full-on depression or knowing that you're not in the space that you want to be in, and then just even like working through fear and
Mhm.
doing it anyway. I mean, it's the same kind of thing where you just go through the motions at least because you know that eventually on the other side, right, that you're going to be able to come out of this. But I think I was doing a lot of that and just picking up and keep going without realizing that that's what I was doing. It was very so autopilot. And when you become aware after leaving that situation, you become aware that that's what you're doing. It's like, it's
Oh,
jolting. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. And I had this realization that I was functioning very highly in a very depressed anxiety state for many years. And when I got out of the service, I got out of my marriage, I realized I was no longer depressed. There was this weird shift of, wow, you feel great. But now then I felt bad because I felt like I wasn't doing enough. Now I'm like, look at all what you could have been doing. Now,
mm,
because you were in this horrible space, you did what you could,
right. You
obviously.
survival mode.
You were in survival mode, but man, what if you had felt great? Look what you could have been. Kind of almost like I was out of things for a few minutes. And then after that, it was like, oh no. Now I'm back in like I suck because I felt that I had missed something. I should have known kind of a feel, right? That I should have known that this was happening to me. And of course that's not that's not
Not how it
true.
works. Yeah. And it's like, I think it's so important, like for people to hear this, that yeah, you can be in that place and then you can be out of that place, as Christinna said. And then when you get out of that place, you can have guilt for being in that place. And here is where it's so important, is to learn how to have compassion for yourself and hold that space for yourself, and learn how to notice when you're getting into that place of guilt or shame, and having the tools to help yourself from falling back into depression because you just put yourself back there, versus, oh, right, I don't have to do this to myself anymore, because you now have either support, or you have tools, or you have like this new awareness, like you said, that you catch it, right? Because it's when we don't
Yep.
catch it that it spirals, and you can easily go back into a dark hole.
Exactly. And I think I was also surrounded by, well, I wasn't really surrounded by anyone. Honestly, I didn't have like a huge friend base, or like, and I was also in the same, these other people were in the same boat I was, without knowing it. So I was still connected to people that were still having the same, issue as I was, and I wasn't being elevated,
Mm,
right? And I didn't know, I think I kind of knew that, but at the same time that there was nowhere to go.
sure.
There was no escape at that time. So when I finally was able to start connecting with other entrepreneurs, other people that were working on themselves, other people that were like introducing me to like mindset and meditation and inner work and all these different things. I had never really thought about any of that. I didn't know what it was. And I started seeing what it was doing for other people. And then I started kind of diving into like, well, how can I fix this? Because I thought the way that I was just how I was. Like, it was just who I
Oh my God,
was.
I
There
want
was no way
everyone
to
to hear
change
that.
it.
Hold on, Christina. I want everyone to hear that. I thought I was just the way I was. And I think that's where a lot of people spend a lot of time. And here's what I want them to hear from you. What was the truth?
The truth is that I can fix it. I can
You
change it.
fixed it. I can change it.
I can change it. I can,
That we're not
um,
like stuck.
you're not stuck.
Right, we're
Right.
stuck.
You're
Yeah.
not stuck. And,
Yeah.
and I felt so stuck that I was convinced there was no way I could get out of the rut. And I mean, I still have those days.
Yeah.
I have those days all the time. But the difference is now I take an action step of some kind to say, I'm not going to sit in this rut. I don't care. Or you hear about those people that quit and then the next day they could have been, that could have been the day,
Right?
right?
That was
So
just one more minute.
one more minute, you got a little bit time left, you can do it. And that time might be 10 years. You don't know, but it could be tomorrow.
Could be very much.
So trying to remember that and keep that in mind, and trying to just keep moving forward. Um, and honestly, that's the approach I take to social media anyway. It changes all the time.
Yeah.
You have to pivot all the time, right? It's it can be overwhelming or exhausting, but you've got to figure out what your system is. You have to take the time to learn, and then you have to accept that it's going to take time to do all of the things that you need to do. Nothing happens overnight. It's just not. And I even told my kids, like, I know you see these YouTube stars, or you hear about these stories that someone made so much money, or they did this overnight. You have no idea what kind of work they put
No,
into it before they posted that
that's
one video.
right.
You have no idea. So that may not be true.
Yeah.
They could have worked on their.
It's so interesting that you said that, because it's like we do only see often 10 years later, right? Like I remember this coach I met in a mastermind, and she had hit like, I don't know, like $1 million. And it looked like it had been in like a year, but really she spent 10 years making nothing. And then in that 11th year, it all skyrocketed. So it's not that, and I don't know if it was $1 million, but it was it was, a fair amount of money. I think it was like 700 or 800,000, but it was like, to the average person, it was like, oh my God, she just started, but she hadn't really started. It was like, oh, it just, so we really don't ever know what's going on behind closed doors. So
Exactly. And that was another thing too, social media, and even the front that you see when people are together and they're putting on this space for social, in-person social stuff. You don't know what's going on behind that relationship or whatever. And so for people to be surprised at the end that either something failed or that you made money or that you did this or that, people are surprised because they do not see all the work or all of the things behind
Yeah,
what's going on. You have no idea. So we have to remember that about social media, that you don't know what's going on behind, how much work people put in.
that's
And
right.
honestly, like, don't fall for or believe it when somebody's telling you, I can get you this in this amount of time or this one day, blah blah blah. Yeah, because one, it's different for everyone,
That's right.
right?
I think I
um
that a little bit with people.
right, like every business is different, every story is different, every person, there's just so much um flex that you have when you're dealing with this kind of stuff. um
Resiliency, Christina.
right.
It's going to be the word of this podcast.
For real though, it really is, like, you have to stick with things. And I'm notorious for, I have the things that are hard for me to stick to.
Oh,
I'm not, we all do that.
we're
It's not.
all addicted to, what do they call it? Shiny object syndrome.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm notorious for taking a bunch of courses. I'm notorious for, like, oh, I want to open this business, or I want to do this, or I want to do that, or I want to do this.
Yeah. Welcome to the team.
Right. And I think you can do a lot of those things, but realize that each one of those things has their own time frame, and it's going to be time to build upon all of those things. And not saying you shouldn't do all the
You
things
do everything you want to, but it
that
doesn't all have to be done
today.
this moment. Yeah. So, Christina, tell them, just because I promised them, we promised each other. We were like, we could talk all day, but
Right.
yeah, seriously. And I know you have to go grab your kids in a moment. So tell them a little bit about, how they can find you. Tell them, like, you coach, people who kind of, like, I would say, getting started with their Instagram. Wouldn't you agree? Trying to
Yes. Yeah.
starting to grow their business with it and really maximizing the platform. How does one find you?
Well, I am obviously on Instagram. So it's
Would that not be hilarious if you're like, yeah, I don't use Instagram?
right. Yeah, no, I'm not trying to use that. No. It's Christinna_Kitchaiya. The spelling is long, so maybe put that
Don't
in the
worry,
show
we'll put
notes.
it in the show notes.
And then on Facebook, it's the same, just Christinna Kitchaiya. Also, my website is christinnakitchaiya.com. It's being edited. You can get on there, but it's being edited. You can email me at connect@christinnakitchaiya.com. Email's okay too. I do have a Facebook group called,
It's so good, people. She gives so much. It's ridiculous amount of value that Christina puts in there.
it's IG Growth Basics for Introverted Women Entrepreneurs, I believe. So I do work with introverted women entrepreneurs, business owners who have maybe been in business 1 or 2 years, and they really want to take advantage of the growth potential that Instagram has. There's 1.4 billion people on there. There's a lot of people on there that you can tap into, see if your ideal client is on there. Of course, this is different for all brands. You want to make sure you know who your ideal client is, and where they might be hanging out. My ideal client actually mainly hangs out on Facebook. Interesting, I know. But if you want to come on over to Instagram, there are so many people looking for businesses on Instagram, and you can now set up shops to shop directly from Instagram. So you can set up a shop. We sell all kinds of things over there, digital products,
Everything.
ads, healthcare, everything. So I feel like it's a platform anyone can find their ideal client on. Honestly, I really do.
I agree.
Yeah. And I use it as a networking platform as well. So it's a little lighter than LinkedIn, but it can be used the exact same way. If you're a serious person and you want to be serious on Instagram, you can do that. It's okay. You don't have to be, it's not just all about comedy and like dancing. We're not doing all that. There's also a lot of education happening, and a lot of A lot of therapists. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of therapists, a lot of coaches. I love I love being on there for good advice, right?
Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, so I feel like it works for all platforms. I have a masterclass coming up in January 7th. We're gonna do networking like a pro on Instagram. And it's just going to teach you exactly how to get in there and engage. It's going to show you why you need to be on there to connect with your people and just give you some really good basics about the platform as well. So I'd love to see you guys there. Join me on there.
And I will make
Um,
sure that we put that in the show notes too. Christina,
and
if
I'm
anybody wants to join, they'll just be able to hit the link and
sure,
come
yeah, and I'm building a landing page for it now. So it'll give
on.
you a little bit more information than the link that's there now, but both either way is fine. It's not a problem. So I'm super excited about that because I like to be able to help people connect without being overwhelmed. The platform does not have to be scary or overwhelming. I post twice a week. I pop into stories sometimes. I'm learning reels, so I'm right there with all of you when it comes to getting that content out in a quality way.
Sure.
And it can be what fits into your schedule. I really want people to understand that it doesn't have to be scary and overwhelming and just another thing I've got to learn for my
Right.
marketing, right? Like it should be fun. You should enjoy it. It really can be
Really
where it can. And I feel like it's a great way to search for the people you're looking for because it is a search engine. And be able to directly message them and say, hey, would you like to work together? Or I like your services. Or, there's a lot of ways you can connect. And
too.
yeah, especially for introverts who are not out there doing in-person networking. A lot of us aren't because of COVID, but also it's a great step to start practicing your pitch as well on Instagram. So yeah, join me.
I love that. Okay. Well, you definitely should hit up Christina if you have any questions about Instagram. If you're looking at growing your business through Instagram, she is your woman. She's awesome. She's fun. She's funny. She's all the stuff. And I'll share all her information. So I think we learned a lot from our conversation with Christina today. I never know where any of these are going to go. And that's what I love. I mean, seriously, like being resilient. Ooh, so good. So important. So if that's all anyone takes from our conversation today, I think that's gold. Christina, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy day and spending it with me and spending it with my audience. And yeah, everyone have a really great week. And I will see you next week. Namaste. Ready to create a soul-aligned business that makes an impact and leaves you feeling nourished, both emotionally and financially? Done feeling burnt out and overextended, trying to juggle that 9-to-5 job, a family, a side hustle, which is really what you are meant to be doing, but just haven't figured out yet how to make it happen so you can maintain your current lifestyle? I get it. I was exactly in your shoes not that long ago, teaching 20 yoga classes a week, juggling being a single mom, and making enough money to support our lifestyle. It wasn't easy. Then I discovered the work I had been doing with my students in yoga teacher training had another name. It's called coaching. It was applying yoga tools, modalities, philosophies, and principles off the mat. I began to offer this to my students, and they loved it. And I was able to make the amount of money to support my family. Over the last 2 decades, I have been helping people transform their lives through therapy, yoga, and coaching. I'm so excited to have coupled all my knowledge into one place so others can pass it on, so more people can benefit from these amazing tools. It all happens inside the Live Your Dharma Coaching Certification. You will learn how to teach yoga off the mat, not the postures, people. Help people transform their lives, and guess what? Yours too. And you will also build the foundation for a 6-figure business. Because let's be real, You do need to make money to live in this world. The doors are open. I take 10 people. So save your spot. Go to https://bit.ly, bit.ly/LYDCC. And if you didn't get that, don't worry, it's in the show notes. See you next week for another amazing episode.